swing away. Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is episode 227. I am your host, the mayor, Jeff Hornacek, and thank you guys so much for joining us for the movie discussion. Before we get started, let's go around and meet my fellow bro. It is our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Ronnie, I found a partially torn physical receipt that a serial killer purchased to a concert for a ticket. I guess, putting the killing aside, isn't it almost more criminal than murder that someone in 2024 is physically buying tickets, like a tangible ticket to events like this? And shouldn't that be punished to the fullest extent of the law?
Yeah, like, honestly, where is he getting this? Is he printing it at home? Which, like, how
Could
much
they
money
even
do you
rip it
have?
when he showed up?
Well, that's what I was saying. How much money does he have to spend on printer toner? Because that's insane in this economy.
Yeah,
Or
what a
two, is he
flex.
physically going to a location? Like, this has so many questions raised here. So, like, that just took me out of reality.
And the chance of it being a fraudulent ticket that way, very high. Just stupid, really.
No trust. Absolutely no way.
Idiotic. The people like that deserve to get caught. They really do.
Yeah, that's a worse crime than murder, in my opinion.
Oh, not even a discussion worth having.
Yeah.
So obvious. All right, well, here on the Bro 4 Squad podcast, we start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that, of course, is Chest Day. Our Chest Day topic this episode, Cycli and I, the two horror thriller heads on the pod, are going to be ranking the M. Night Shyamalan filmography. So his 13, well, I guess you did 12 because you haven't seen one of them, the 13 films that he has directed. So
And
the
wrote.
way that
Right.
and wrote, yeah, I believe he wrote all these, yeah. So let me just let people know before we get started the 5 films that we are excluding that he was involved in and why. We're not counting at all anything he produced, but things that he's either wrote or credited with the story that are not on these rankings. His first 2 films, which he wrote and directed, Praying with Anger and Wide Awake. Cycli, I mean, we haven't seen these movies, which is a good reason not to include them on our list. But also looking at just like what they are in some cursory research, they feel like M. Night had not become M. Night yet at that point either. So I feel like they don't really belong on this list anyway.
And maybe that's and maybe someone out there is listening and seeing this like a unfair or cruel call out for us. But like, yeah, if you go read the synopsis for this films, it does not fit the genre we're feeling. We're also not including Last Airbender, but I think we'll get into that one a little bit. But M. Night, the movies we're following here, the ones he's written and directed, like they do feel like specific genre that M. Night specifically has touched. So I'm not saying I will visit those original M. Night movies. I do want to watch them. I'm actually very curious about them.
That's one thing about him. I don't know how many other directors can say this, but like the other 2 films we're not including are Stuart Little, which he wrote, and then Devil, where he was credited with the story, which I actually think is a kind of an interesting movie. But with especially,
I did like The Devil, yeah.
Yeah. But especially if you look at like his early work, it doesn't mirror his like the bulk of his filmography at all. So it's almost kind of like a Jordan Peele scenario, right? Where he started off as not in the same vein of comedy, but like a very different genre than the one that he really ended up cutting his teeth in. And it's just really interesting that they're able to make that transition successfully. Like,
You almost have to wonder how he got the opportunity with like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable.
yeah.
Like who took
also,
a chance on it, to like, or with the originality of it all.
another movie that he did rewrites on, and I remember seeing his name in the credits, is She's All That, which Geiger and I recently did a commentary on.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, so he's not I don't know how the WGA credits work, but on Wikipedia he's credited with rewrites, but he's in the opening credits for the movie.
That's props to him. I mean, I guess he can do comedy. I mean, again, if you look at the Rosie O'Donnell one specifically, is intended as a comedy. Can we say really fast before we get into the rankings? We have always, whether or not you like M. Night movies, I think he's quite polarizing. Obviously, he has some incredible movies that people do love, and I think everyone, like we can talk about Sixth Sense, we're going to get in depth on that. But we've always kind of defended him on this pod And here's why. I've always said specifically, like, we are in an era of Hollywood that has a lot of repetition, a lot of sequels, a lot of prequels, where we just get a lot of the same thing over and over. And I will defend M. Night over and over. Even if his movies are terrible, I will walk out of his movies saying, at least he gave me something different, even if it was just like painful in the moving experience, because like I just appreciate the originality. And so like this is something we've talked about plenty of times on pod, and I'm glad we're doing this with Trap having come out 2 weeks ago. We decided like this would be a fun time to go over M. Night's filmography and really rank them, because it's going to be a fun conversation. But I will always defend M. Night. I think you will always defend M. Night, just because he brings something different to the movie going experience, and I really hope he continues to do it, even if it's for the worst sometimes.
Yeah, I got to give him credit. He's pretty fearless because he has taken a lot of heat. Especially there was like that stretch in like the middle of his career where, I mean, his films were getting panned hard, and he didn't like alter his trajectory or his course at all. He still does, like you said, unique things. I know he's obviously The Last Airbender was based on IP, but for the most part, like Old is based on a like 2-page short story. So most of the stuff he does are original ideas that are usually big swings for the fences, and that's what I appreciate about him. He's one of the few guys out there in Hollywood who is willing to just do like movies based on properties that are not slam dunk successes because of any built-in audience. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, he has, I'm pretty sure you guys can fact check me, I think his movies have raked in about 3.6 billion in box office. So maybe he's, he has every ability to say fuck it. I can throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. People will go to his movies. I am one of them. He has, I think, lately taken a step back from going from the twist master. I think he knows that people go to his movies expecting a twist to the point to where it's almost been detrimental, that people are watching the twist from the beginning, and so it's taken away from the movie going experience. And I think we have almost not we're almost disappointed with his movies when there isn't a twist, or the twist isn't as good, and we're not actually enjoying the movie. So that's another thing that we're going to get into, especially with Trap, and I know we'll talk about Trap more later. But again, it's the thing that M. Night has dug his own grave in, to be honest with you. But it's something, again, that we appreciate because it's originality, not at its best, but is originality at originality. So this will be a fun conversation. We'll see if we agree on some of these things. We'll see if we're far off. We have no idea. We did not talk about this beforehand. We only talked about tiering these and ranking these. So we'll see how we feel about M. Night movies.
Yep. And so, Cycly, as we get into the rankings, do you want to go over the tiers that we put together? Because we have 5 different tiers of his movies. We'll start with the worst up to the best, even though we also have actual rankings that break them down. I think this is a better way to really let you know the gaps between certain movies and our opinions on them.
Yeah, we were thinking conversationally how's the best way of like going through this, instead of just saying this is our number 13, number 12, number 11. So we have our bottom category, which is going to be terrible tier, just awful, right? Like these movies are just painful. Our next level above that is, I kind of called our worth watching once, maybe a decent concept, appreciate the effort, M. Night. But just really, that's about it. And then we have our above average movies. We have our good / almost great movies, and then we have our pretty much incredible M. Night movies. So we have 5 tiers that we have these divided. And I don't know how many Jeff has in his each tier. I have mine almost 2, 3 in each one.
I have 2 minimum, 3 max in each tier.
Yeah,
just
that's
the way
how I
have
out. It. That's funny. Yeah.
Okay, let's dive right in. We, of course, have to start with the worst, and that is the terrible tier. I have 2 movies in here. I included The Last Airbender. I actually saw this in theaters. I have not seen the anime, which I know it's based on. And this was a case for me of just world building that did not work at all. I believe Dev Patel is in this. I could be wrong. I don't even really remember. But I remember the visual effects had a couple cool ideas, but it felt like The Matrix, but it was written by like a child who had really no idea how to storytell. And the vernacular that was used in it was like way inside baseball. Like I didn't fucking understand anything that was going on, and I almost walked out of it in the theaters, but I can't remember the circumstances why I wasn't there. So
The fact that you didn't walk out of this, but you walked out of Black Dahlia says something.
yeah, so that's
So Denzel
very
is in this. I have not seen this. I have in my list. I did not rank this. I just have the word Last Airbender. Just no. There is not
yeah.
one part of me that's been motivated to watch this movie, and not even in a sense of, hey, it's so bad, it's entertaining. Bad. Like, there's not one part of me that wants to watch this
Yeah,
movie.
it's confusing, and maybe if I liked the anime, I would like it. I don't know if I'd like it more or less, maybe less, but at least then I would probably understand some of the things that were going on.
I think I'm not motivated to watch this because, like you said, it's already IP that's not M Night's world. If it was like
Yeah,
a creative M Night like origination, then like I would be more motivated to watch this.
yeah, that's what really makes it unique to this entire list. Is it's the only thing on here that is based on something that had like an actual other iteration in media in terms of like a show or a movie. Because even like we said, Old is based on a short story, but it's never been, to my knowledge, been made into a movie or a show. So what's the first one you have in your terrible?
Mine, and this is painful. Like to me, it is The Happening. And the problem with The Happening is this. I would actually love to put this in the category above where I'm like, bravo, appreciate the effort, love the concept. The concept of The Happening is great. Like I love the idea that the Earth was rebelling from humans who are destroying the Earth. That concept could play in a different screenwriter, different performances. I don't know, in a different world. But the thing is, it has a great cast. There's no excuse for this movie at all. That's the problem. And I rewatched it actually hoping that it was going to fit into the category of it's going to be so bad and entertaining.
Yeah.
But it's not. It is a disaster of a film in every sense of the word. Mark Wahlberg is atrocious.
It's the worst performances of any of M. Night's films.
By far. And this was maybe the first film, and this might have been the start of his disaster run, but it's by far the worst one. And it doesn't have any redeeming qualities outside of the plot has legs, and that's it. Like you tell me that plot, okay, the planet rebels, cool. And it's the movie doesn't have anything else going for it, in my opinion. Um, it's not fun bad. It is literally just bad all around. And the fact that the fantastic cast doesn't redeem it, the fact that a decent plot doesn't redeem it, the fact that like literally nothing holds this movie together, it is terrible all the way around.
Yeah, it's so badly acted. But has such a cool concept.
I know.
Which is where it's like playing this game of tug of war where it's like, man, this thing really like there's constantly having opportunities for the film where you're like to stick it, to stick the landing, to right the ship. And it just refuses to do so. Because I don't know if I would be interesting to read about this because Wahlberg's performance, obviously we've seen him deliver Oscar-worthy performances.
Yeah.
Was he like forced to do this movie for some reason? Did he dislike M. Night? Or again, is it one of these weird things where M. Night, I feel like it's like purposely directing actors to almost act like they're in a different world than the one we live
in? This is not going to be the first time I'm going to say this. It's George Lucas. It's George Lucas with an incredible cast in the prequels. I mean, we have Zooey Deschanel, we have John Leguizamo in this movie. Like again, good actors. It's there's something disconnected between. Is it the screenplay? I don't know. Is it Natalie Portman in Revenge of the Sith? Like I don't, Ewan McGregor. I don't know. So I'm not gonna. I know why we haven't gotten to where The Happening is on yours. So that's where it is for me. So you're up next on what else is in your terrible category.
All right, the last M. Night film, I only had two in the terrible category. This might really surprise you. It is the only sequel he's ever done, and that is Glass.
Wow, that is very low. Wow, I mean that's literally terrible.
Yeah, and it's way away from Split, which I really liked. But
yes.
Glass to me, so the concept of it, I think, has promise. When you think about bringing together characters from completely separate films, similar to like a Connected Universe, but I don't really think these characters had any business being together. I know they had like quote unquote supernatural abilities. I don't think story wise anything happened with them that was interesting there. And I think the worst part is James McAvoy's character in Split. We learn and see everything that we need to about him. There's really nothing that happens in Glass that adds to the interest of his character. But I think the absolute worst part is two things. Number one, the fate of Bruce Willis's unbreakable character in this movie is one of the stupidest things. Do you remember what happens to him?
Yeah.
Just one of the dumbest things that M. Night's ever done in a film. And then number two, he refuses to fucking wrap up this story with the dumbass secret society thing at the very end. Like, bro, tell a story. Like, we don't always have to be dangling this thread that's out there at the end. I mean, McAvoy in it again was just like, I've done everything I can do with this character.
Which he, in his respect, he like absolutely did. You think
so
Bruce Willis had influence on that? Because like I really wondered that when it came out.
Maybe I don't know. And also the thing with McAvoy's character in Split, the dynamic of him and Anya Taylor-Joy is what makes the film. He has her trapped in like a basement. This one, he's taken out of that. He's not as scary because he's clearly locked up in a mental asylum the whole time. It's like taking, I don't know, LeBron James, and instead of having him play basketball, you bring him somewhere to play like checkers. Like, it's the same guy, but he's not doing the thing that made him interesting in the first place. I think that if this movie was never made, if we just had the end credit scene to Split, my life would have been better.
Just like the concept of like the idea of it.
Yeah, I just really got nothing out of these characters coming together. And then the way that it ends, it's like, was he planning on doing a third one? I don't. Just none of these. It feels like he has like a bunch of ideas for movies, and he tried to glue them all together in this film, and they didn't really fit at all. So that's my last one in terrible.
Yeah, the last one in terrible, and the only reason this is above The Happening is After Earth, and the reason why this is above that is, and why this is my wife and I watched this movie maybe 6 months after it came out in 2013. We got it on a Redbox DVD back when that was a thing you did after going to the grocery store when we were first dating.
I kind of miss those days.
Yeah. And we were like, you want to watch a really bad movie? And it was funny because like The Happening was probably this like the start of M. Night's really bad run, and After Earth is probably what would be considered maybe the end of his really bad run. Before like Split and The Visit and a bunch of his like maybe coming back at it, and we rented it and got probably a couple bottles of wine. And this movie is what I would call like just terrible, obviously, but there was redeeming qualities in the sense that like me and my wife had a great time watching it, like watching Will and his son Jaden Smith like just put on terrible performance with a ridiculous concept. We had a good time watching it. I don't know, like I've never wanted to give it another chance. I don't want to give it another chance because I don't want to spoil that memory of me and my now wife, but then girlfriend, like having a fun night where I think we like played Mousetrap, like while we watched that movie.
This is a really fun, good night.
Like early, like she was still in college, I was in law school. Like we lived in two different cities. Like we tether every 2 weeks. Like that's what made that movie like kind of fun. That movie is terrible. The memory of that movie is fun to me. So I will never revisit that movie because I don't want that to be ruined. But that was a bond we made on our love of horrible movies that we still have in terms of we love disaster movies. We love like 2012. We love like what was that movie where the moon is coming
Moonfall.
to Moonfall? Yeah, exactly. Like we love fucking terrible movies, and it started because of After Earth. It is on my terrible category because it is terrible, but it was slightly redeemed over The Happening because I had a great night with now my wife.
Well, that'll bring me right into. Is that all your terrible movies, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
that brings category.
That'll bring us right into the worth watching once category, just below terrible. And I'll start with After Earth, which is my first one in this category. I rewatched it this week. I saw it way back when it came out. And I still think that like the word of mouth of this is a little bit more punitive than the film actually deserves. It's not good by any stretch, but there are like a couple things in it that are kind of cool. the problem with this is so much of it is like really like it talks to the audience like we're the dumbest person of all time. Like the way they explain, like literally Will Smith explains the plot of the movie to Jaden
Yeah, I
Smith.
remember
He
this.
goes, "You need to go get that beacon. You have 2 days. If you don't get it, I will die. Do you understand that?" And I feel like he's talking to me as the audience, like, "Are you fucking stupid?
And he
Here's what the
winks at
movie."
you.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I
Also, go
get
to the
it.
bathroom now and get some popcorn. I'm like, what?
Also, the flashbacks that they use to try and establish these characters'
Yes, I remember
connections
that.
are
Yeah.
hilarious. M. Night's like, okay, I'm going to tell you that these people care about each other. Okay, do you get it? But it's so fucking clunky. And Jaden Smith is absolutely horrible in this. Will
He's
Smith
so
is
bad.
he's
So bad.
maybe it's the best he can do, but he's really really bad. Will Smith is the worst I've ever seen him. Like this is worse than like Wild Wild West levels. But
Which is saying something.
The reason I have it in my worth watching once is it is so bad that I think like you have to see it. And it didn't like annoy me as much as Glass in The Last Airbender, maybe because I was expecting something really awful. So I maybe I give it a little bit of a knock up, but it's definitely at the bottom of the worth watching once category, and it's teetering on the edge of being in terrible.
Yeah.
I'll just mention this other one in this category because you already did. It's The Happening. And this is a movie that I think I love the concept so much. That's the only thing keeping it out of the terrible category because it is very, very poorly put together. It almost feels like it's parodying itself. Like the actors are clearly not bought in, sans John Leguizamo, who actually gives a pretty good performance. But I just think this idea, man, like if M. Night pitched me this movie and I was a studio executive, I would be like, yes, make that.
Absolutely.
Like it's just conceptually something I never thought of, and there's so many ways to take it. But then once you get into it, either he didn't have a plan on how to execute it, or he was not as bought into this idea as he should have been because it just flounders at every turn.
Do you
and
not
that scene
think
with,
like? Oh, God.
I was gonna say that scene with Mark Wahlberg at the farm that you mentioned is like, is he in an SNL skit? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
It feels like it.
How do you cash a check for a role when that's the
feels
performance
like
you gave?
But does that feel like I'm telling you? Like, there's sometimes like George Lucas and M. Night really remind me of each other. Like, why can they not hand over reins sometimes? Like George Lucas did that with the original trilogy, right? Like
Yeah,
he
Lawrence
was not
Kasdan
the
wrote most of those
screenwriter.
movies.
Like, why does M. Night need to be the screenwriter? He can come up with the concept, be in the room with the screenwriter. Like, that's what I think is holding him back from being incredible. To be honest with you, he has come up with so many genius ideas. I just don't get it because like The Happening is fantastic on concept.
On paper, it should be like one of his top 5 movies, but then you get into it and you're like, oh god, the fuck happened here?
I don't know. I remember seeing that trailer, being like, I'm so in.
Yeah.
All
right. So what's one of your other ones in worth watching once?
So I won't spend too much time on it because you just where did it go? Shoot.
If you lost it, I can do my last one.
No, hold on. Sorry. Okay. Mine is Glass. My first one's Glass. So I won't spend too much time on it. I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. I put this on worth watching once just because it was a concept film of 3 films put in one, and it was just like something built over 20 years. And it definitely.
I'm pretty sure, like, you couldn't just go see Glass, right, without having seen at least Split, right? You'd be so fucking confused.
It without Unbreakable, I don't think so. I just feel like it was ambitious, so this is why it made it over the terrible category. It did not land on its feet by any means. The only reason I have it in the upper echelon and over terrible was that it was a concept film where I appreciated that effort, and it was worth seeing because, like you said, when we got the teaser at the end of Split, I was like, I don't know if M. Night always wanted to do that, and if not, like maybe it was something always in his plan, and it took him a while to build to, and there were certain things that had to fall into place and domino effect, and I was proud of him for like getting to that point. And so like if it was a vision he had that like you know what? Good for him. And that's kind of why I was like, worth watching once. And that was it. Like, it just did not. Like you said, the ending, woof, buddy. Like, if you really put that into a 20-year plan, like, I don't know how that, like, was, like,
He
really
got
couldn't have changed that, but
he had been beaten down for so long that I think when Split worked so well and people loved it, he got like a little bit overconfident again.
probably. And that's why I was like wondering, did Bruce Willis have influence there? I don't know.
Maybe.
But I'll never probably watch that again. I was excited when I went and watched it in theaters. I walked out going, like I do with a lot of M. Nights, going, well, good for you, M. Night. You got me in the theater again.
Yeah.
Like,
Touche.
Touche, M. Night. You did it, you sly bastard. I was fine. Like, I didn't hate it. I just thought at the end of it, I was like, you know what? I appreciated his effort.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was terrible. It just did not stick the landing.
I don't know what it is. It's like he's like our son, but like even when M. Night fucks up, I'm not like
Mhm.
mad at him. I'm just like,
Mhm.
let's learn from it, okay?
Yeah, let's learn. I'm disappointed, but I appreciate that you tried.
Yeah, I see what you're going for there.
Let's go back and revisit the tape.
Okay, how many more do you have in worth watching once? I got one left.
Let me.
Because if you have two, I want to.
I have one more.
Okay, I'll do my last one then. This one, you and I did a review on this, but I actually don't know. Like in retro, it's weird because like when you actually go compare his filmography, you're like, you know what? That movie was weaker than I thought, or that movie was stronger than I thought with a lot of his films. And cyclically, this was Knock at the Cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Having my worth watching once. This was one when you and I first read like the concept of it with an M. Night film like a year before it came out. We were very intrigued. Very simple is what really had us hooked. Like 3 strangers knock on a cabin door, a couple answers it, and they tell them that the world is going to end. Like, wow, that's pretty interesting concept. This is one though that I just feel like it's so forgettable. Like after I stepped out of the theater, and then specifically when I think about like where it ends up going, there are a few like moral dilemma questions that it asks you, but nothing that like hasn't been done so many times before. And the ending to me, I just felt like for M. Night especially, there was just no creativity involved. It was just so straightforward that I was like, what was even the point?
So
really?
Let me jump in because that's also what I have is Knock at the Cabin at the exact same place. And I felt like almost the ending felt like they reined in M. Night where he wasn't allowed to do what he wanted. And now I do believe this is a book.
I think you're
right. Or a short story, so I could be wrong, and I don't know how that ends, whether or not it ends in that way. But it felt so reined in that I walked out of there. Did like M. Night not get allowed to like do like? Did he not get basically allowed to do what he wanted to do? Because it just felt like it was too clean.
I was almost like, did I miss something?
Yeah. I think you described everything about Knock at the Cabin in one word: forgettable. It's good when you watch it. The performances are fine. Honestly, it's a well performed movie for an M. Night movie. It's one of the better performed
Bautista
movies.
Especially really.
I love him. Yeah, I honestly think it's like he's had his moments. Like he's a really good actor for a wrestler. Like, I think the child actor was good. Like, I think everyone in that movie is good. I think, again, fantastic concept, like a lot of M. Night movies. It just doesn't have anything. There's no wow factor. There's no oomph at the end. There's no, like, oh, shit moment.
Yeah.
It just kind of ends with a whimper, not a bang.
Yeah, it's again, of all his films, one thing I typically say that he does is leaves an imprint on you, good or bad. And A Knock at the Cabin is the one. It's probably the most meh of any of these, which for him is pretty shocking.
Yep.
Disappointing. All right, next we move on to Above Average. Oh, sorry, do you have one more in that category? I skipped over you. Okay, it was Knock at the Cabin. All right.
Yeah.
What is your? I have 3 in Above Average. What is
I
your?
have 2 here.
Okay, perfect. You want me to go first then? Because I think I've actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
This one you have not seen, but I rewatched it this week. It's Lady in the Water, which I think I'm one of the apologists for. But having rewatched
I will say I've seen people online that are like pro or con. Like people love this or people hate this.
Yeah, on a rewatch, I'm glad I rewatched it this week. I was like, okay, maybe in my head I was like giving it a little bit more praise than it did deserve. But the thing about Lady in the Water is it requires a lot of buy-in from the viewer. Like pretty much 25 minutes into the movie, M. Night is telling you, hey, this is the concept of what this film is. And at that point, you're either along for the ride or you're going to basically check out and say, no, that's too much, buddy. I can't do that.
And that's fine. Good for him to let you know what it is.
Yeah. I love Paul Giamatti in this. One of the better M. Night performances that we get, or performances from an M. Night directed movie, is him in this. The ancillary characters are really, really interesting and fun, but towards the end, there's like a big, like symphonic moment with the score. And in theaters, I remember thinking like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I watched it this time and I was like laughing at it, like unintentionally. So most of the movie works, but it requires a lot of buy-in from the viewer. And even me, halfway through, I was like, "Dude, like I'm in, but you're really pushing what you're expecting me to like be okay with in this film." Like it's kind of wild. But it's also a really cool. The whole movie takes place at this apartment complex that Paul Giamatti is the super for, and you probably know this cyclically, but Bryce Dallas Howard plays essentially this quote unquote like version of a mermaid that needs
She
to
lives
get
in the
back.
pool, right?
Yeah, and she needs to get back to her world, and he has to find like these 6 guardians that will help her get back to her world. And they're different people from his apartment complex, and he doesn't know who they are. So he has like this like description of them or like roles that they fill, and based on what he knows about the people who live at his apartment, he has to figure out who each person could be. And if he gets it wrong, she will die. Like she'll get attacked by this
Oh shit.
monster. So it's an interesting concept, but as it goes on,
originality, fucking props, bro.
yeah. And that's why it's in my above average list, because it's one that I would watch again and I do enjoy, but it's I mean, it's the M. Night thing. It's ballsy and it doesn't always pay off, but I do respect that from him.
Yeah, you gotta respect that. Like again, who's gonna do that, man? Like, I mean, who is
Right.
pulling off a movie like that?
This is a script where like if it was just written by like a WGA writer and people were looking to option it, I could see a lot of people reading it and passing on it for good reason. They're like, I can't fucking adapt this. What are you talking about? All right, what's your first one in above average?
This was very much on the line of above average to watch it once, appreciate the effort, and that is the most recent movie, Trap.
God, that's my next one too. What the fuck?
Sweet. So let's talk about that together, and we can go into that in depth too a little more later. But this one I think raises the cusp because in a lot of M. Night ways, it strikes chords in the right way for starting the movie, and then it just drops off in other parts of the movie. And it's so infuriating because that's what M. Night is. Like, he just does so much right, and then he does so much wrong. And you're just like, it drives you crazy because you're like, that's why you wish there was, I think he's surrounded by yes men. Again, I'm for the 5th time in the room.
He's had enough success to where he can hire them around him.
Yes. And I'm going to say that again for the 10th time. George Lucas. You just have someone in that room saying no. Have someone in that room helping with the screenplay. Have someone in the room saying, hey, actually, don't do this.
Right.
Because it makes no sense. Right? Like, Trap works that first hour. Is it a ridiculous concept? Does M. Night not know that concerts don't take place at 1:00 in the afternoon?
Right.
Fine. Okay, but I can.
And there's not like constant breaks where they reconfigure the stage.
Yeah, the stadium isn't completely full in the concourse during the concert. Whatever, M. Night. But I can buy, like, we're just talking about Lady in the Water. I can buy into ridiculous concepts with M. Night movies. So like we're past that. So I'm not here to have this conversation with someone who's like, oh, that's a stupid part of the movie. No, I'm not here for that. I'm not going to have a conversation with you that the movie took place at 1:00 on a Saturday. That's fine. I can get over that. The first hour and 10 minutes of the movie in the arena is what I signed up for. Josh Hartnett I am here for his renaissance. I am here for Josh Hartnett, baby. I
We're
am back.
trumpeting
He's
it from the
back.
front lines.
Yeah, exactly. Like he is 90s like heartthrob, baby. We are back. Like like I love that. Like we got like for some reason he took off his shirt at the end of the movie. I'm like, all right, cool. I guess we're doing this. Like all right. But like that was what we came for. Like a serial killer who is clearly full of confidence, who like is literally trying to outwit and outmaneuver the FBI, police, whatever, and kind of creatively like figure out his way out of this arena. And for so much of that movie, that's what we got. And him even being called out by his daughter for him being like, "Hey, let's go underneath the stadium. Let's do this." And she's like, "Dad, that's weird." And he's like, "Fuck, you're right. Like, I cannot do something stupid like that
Yeah.
because it's obvious. I have to play this suave. I have to play this smart." That was what I went to the movie for. And for an hour and 10 minutes, that's what we got. The problem of the rest of the movie was in the next 45 minutes, which was the longest. That 45 minutes took what, like 3 hours of our lives. I don't know if we want to go in more depth. We might go later. So I don't know if I'm going to let you go. I don't know. You can go. I don't know how deep we want to go into this.
Yeah, I'll just take the baton from there and run with it a little bit because, again, as is the case with probably 90% of the films on this list, incredible concept and conceit. And if you pitched me it as a studio executive, I would be drooling on the table, being like, I need to see this movie. I don't think he had an idea of how to end it. And I also think that, like you said, the pacing of it is so good in the first hour. It's real time, basically.
Yeah, real
at a
time.
concert.
We love those real time
Yeah.
movies.
Well, that's what we were pitched. Was it was going to take place in real time, essentially. And then the third act, like you said, I felt like there were two really good opportunities to end this movie that it didn't take. And it just kind of drags on. And at a certain point, you're just like, okay, so what is this really about? Like, what was the idea? And then there's the whole angle, like, was this really just a vehicle for him to kind of showcase his daughter? I don't know.
Launch her acting singing career.
Right. I don't know what the consensus is on that, but it's certainly like not unwarranted or without merit to bring that point out. But Trap is one of those movies where it's like there's enough things going for it, especially for the first 2/3 of the film, that it is in my above average category, but also it then falls victim to a lot of the sort of M. Night pitfalls when his films don't work, where it either doesn't stick the landing. And in this case, I'm not even talking about a twist that doesn't work. I just literally mean like resolving the character arcs in this are it's really either lazy or you're just like, really, that's what you ended up doing. And the most interesting parts of it happen in the first 2/3. I find myself like really wanting it to end pretty much once they left the concert venue, almost like mercilessly. I was like, finish this off, dude.
Checking my watch.
Right.
Checking my phone.
And it's not a long movie. It's like an hour 35, not counting the credits. So, but literally for those last 35 minutes, you're like, oh, dude, can we wrap this up?
He can't spoilers. Skip ahead 20 seconds. But he escapes so many times once he leaves the arena. It's leave all like it's just leave all realism behind. It's just ridiculous.
Well, they spend so much time. They eventually end up spending so much time outside of the concert that you're like, why did I even feel tension about him trying to get out?
Exactly.
Like now we spent a third of the movie.
Fantastic. Had they never left the arena, or had there been some twist about the family. Again, we'll go into it in a little more. But yeah, I think we both feel the same way with Trap and the location where it fits on M. Night's filmography.
Yeah. All right. We've been very similar thus far, Cycly. I have one more in above average. How many? Do you have one more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's your last one in the above average category?
It is Old.
Oh my God.
Really?
That's the same one I have.
No way. Yeah. Okay, so this one is higher. I wish I could tier these actually, because this is, if I could list this would be much higher than Trap though, because I
want to hear our review of this because I can't remember if we loved this or we didn't hate it for sure, but I can't remember if we were like, I feel like it's grown on my palate as I've let it linger over like the last 2 years.
Here's the thing about Old. I'm going to start with the negative. The Old negative is the performances. It's typical M. Night negative acting performances. Screenplay, not great.
Oh, I saw this with my mom, and she was like laughing out loud. Like I think she thought it was a comedy.
That's a lot of like, that was Trap. Like half the audience is laughing, doesn't know if it's a comedy. Like that's M. Night, man. He doesn't know like how to write something. But you and I have been like this since our friendship originated back when we were like 15, 16 years old. We are just suckers for things that really stick us in eras, things that are put us and make us reminisce about time spent together, memories spent, times of like friendships, and like things we did when we were younger. And Old strikes that chord in a way that like takes you away from like how poorly acted and poorly written the screenplay is. And there's a specific scene
I know the
where
exact thing you're talking about.
the husband and wife are like now like fast forward to like 80 years old, and they're about to pass away on the beach. And I honestly teared up.
Yeah. They're like starting to lose their memory a little bit.
Yeah. And they forget why they were fighting. And they said,
He says that, he goes, what were we even fighting about?
like, it made me like realize like, what is life, but not these fulfillment of memories and um, just experiences that we share in friendship. And like my life with my wife and my parents, and your life with your wife and your family. And it's all these little moments built up over time.
Mm-hmm.
And Old, while it's such a ridiculous film, strikes that chord. And like, fuck it, it literally just hit me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this movie has no right to make me fucking cry.
I know. The twist is fine. Like
I like
it worked.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Company.
Yeah, it worked for me. It made sense while they were on the island and the way that it worked. The character arcs are really imbalanced in the sense, to the point that you were just making. Some of them are like played almost exclusively for laughs, and then others really strike an emotional chord with you. Like they're kind of all over the map and like very far stretching. But the scene you were talking about, I think, might be the the most poignant and beautiful line in any M. Night movie, which is when the old couple, I believe, is it the wife or the dad that went? Spoilers alert for Old. Skip ahead. It's 30 seconds if you haven't seen this, but also if you haven't seen all M. Night's films. I'm sorry, this whole thing is spoilers. Is it the mom or the dad who's gone blind?
The dad has now gone blind. No. Yeah, and the mom's going deaf. Like they're both like just getting old, like literally.
Got it. And they just realized that like whatever the fights they had previously in their life, like when you're at that point where you realize how prescient and limited our time on this earth is, like the little things don't matter. What matters is how much you care about someone and your relationship with them. And I know that the vehicle that M. Night gave that to us in can be a little hard for people to buy into, like a beach where you age essentially your whole lifetime in a day. But the message is still the same, and it really hit me in that moment. I think you kind of get whiplash because, like you said earlier in the movie, when his daughter gets pregnant and runs out screaming, you're like laughing. And then that moment, 20 minutes later, you're like bawling your fucking eyes out. So that scene alone, I think, bumps Old. I mean, the movie itself, I probably wouldn't have put much lower than this anyway, but that line alone is probably the one that stuck out to me more than any in his entire filmography.
And that's why, like, literally, like, if I really could tier it even better, like, it would be much higher than Trap. But, like, I would defend Old much stronger to some, like, a like, if I'm having a conversation with someone at a bar and we're talking about M. Night, like, I had to, like, defend one M. Night movie, I would defend Old pretty arduously than I would.
And I would put it in my good category, but I think there's a really big gap between Old and Trap, and Old and then the bottom one in the good category too.
The problem with Old, again, is the acting and the screenplay. Like, if I'm really going to break it down as a movie, it's not well done.
Yeah, but it definitely has some high highs.
It does. And like I said, it made me tear up, like, straight up. Respect.
Yes. I think it's the only M. Night movie in here that I cried during it all.
For sure.
Although I might have cried during The Happening, but it's for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why did they cast Zoe Deschanel in this? All right, is that all for your
recognize her without her bangs? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I wonder if you like forced her to cut those. Like, people will be looking at that instead of your bad acting.
Yeah, I am done with above average.
All right, on to good. I have 3 in the good category. How many do you have?
I do too.
Perfect. What is your first good movie?
It's gonna be Unbreakable.
Yep. This is not great podcasting. Our lists are basically.
Are you kidding me? Is
Yeah.
that yours too?
And actually, in my rankings, that's the next one too. Is Unbreakable.
That's why I'm saying I have it in my ranking. Yeah, like
Jesus Christ.
I thought Unbreakable would be higher for you.
Because of the like comic book concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that a lot. I just think like the other films above it have something that is just so revolutionary to me in terms of like movies that I've seen and thrillers that it was tough for Unbreakable to. Unbreakable doesn't really have a twist. Like I guess Mr. Glass being revealed, but that happens like early in the second act, if I remember.
Yeah.
Right, what he is.
And I do love it. I think I saw this. I mean, I'm interested to see where, like, yeah, overall as a film, I think there just isn't. The performances are good. This is pre-bad performance M. Night now. Like, right, we're getting back to early M. Night. Like, this is now. I think almost exclusively. I'm looking at my list. There's only one movie now that I think, well, theoretically for both of us, there's two movies now that are on my list that are post bad performance M. Night. Unbreakable.
Yeah.
Is what his second movie really theoretically. I mean, on our list, like after The Sixth Sense.
And you're like, will he always just work with Bruce Willis?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a brilliant concept again. It was like almost like, can M. Night, like, how much more can he get away with this?
Yeah.
And it really is. I think if you go back to the late 90s, this movie is looked at a little differently. I think I have it lower on my list. Again, it's in my upper second highest tier. So, like, I'm not insulting it. I think it's just like overall hasn't aged as well. It's a brilliant concept, but again, it does kind of like play into the like superhero concept. Samuel L. Jackson trying to find the character who is his like opposite. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I think to no fault of its own, now it feels a bit watered down. Because it was almost like a superhero movie told from different perspectives and a little bit grittier, which now it just feels like a film that we have like 15 of these. But no fault of its own at the time. But now when you're like ranking these, it's just a little bit harder to put this one higher up because we've just seen it done so many times. Now this is maybe one of the most effective implementations of it. And Bruce Willis plays one of his more interesting characters in his whole career. But yeah, now when you look at it, it's maybe more of a testament to how strong the films are ahead of it than anything else. I think that this is my number 6 and the bottom of my good category.
I think you're right. I think if we went back in, like if this was 2005, I mean, obviously because there's less movies, but like I think we've been so inundated with superhero movies. That's what's brought Unbreakable down.
Yeah. Okay. Your number 5, second one in your good category. What do you have?
The Visit.
Okay. That one is higher up on my list.
Okay, good. I'm not saying, I mean, like, well, I mean, I won't get too much into, like, I'll save the conversation for you go, but I love this concept because for M. Night, he did something different in the sense of, like, found footage. This is something he's never done, which is crazy for M. Night because he's done so many unique things. The concept of this is his scariest film. It like for me and you for being horror thriller heads, like, man, this movie made the neck hairs stand up for me. Like I was I was making noises watching this film to the point my wife, who wasn't watching this film with me, was like downstairs yelling like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, this film is making me like creeped out. Like I wasn't scared like I'm about to kill. I was like it just made me feel like icky. Like this whole movie. Like I was just like, ugh, I felt uncomfortable watching this whole movie. And this movie what came out in 2015. I only watched this movie like about a year ago or 2 years ago. And I'm so disappointed it took me so long because if I had watched this in 2015, I would have made a sweeping declaration going, guys, M. Night Shyamalan is fucking back.
Oh, 100%.
Because this came out probably post like when he was in like the like worst run of his life.
Yeah. And like you said, with a whimper too. Like no one was really touting this movie.
And I don't want to spoil it, but what a twist.
Oh God. One of his best.
Twist. Like, I mean, maybe like retrospect, like looking back, I should have seen it coming, but like, even if you see it coming, still fucking demonic of a twist.
It's creepier if you know what's going on the whole time.
Exactly.
Too.
The mom's reaction when she sees
that's the best scene of the film. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll let you. I won't want to go too much into it, but fucking The Visit.
I'll wait to talk about The Visit. I love it. I actually rewatched it today, literally like hours before we came on pod. One thing I'll say, just as a tease, I don't know if you remember this, but the son in the movie, his character's name is Tyler. He is an aspiring rapper. So the found footage conceit here, his sister is making a documentary of their trip to their grandparents, and he keeps stealing her camera, filming himself like freestyle rapping. And I love how he ends every one of his raps with like a quick beat of like a pause, and then he goes, "Ho."
Yeah, and that seems pretty good too.
No, when they're on the train going there, like the conductor guy or the guy taking the tickets does like a little beat for him. Yeah, and he does this freestyle rap because he's bragging about how he's texting 2 girls at once. It's pretty incredible.
I was like, it's so I was like, that's the M. Night's been so like, especially with all these movies. I'm like, it's like we were talking about Trap. I was like, M. Night doesn't know how concerts work. M. Night doesn't know how. I was like, M. Night got how a 12-year-old boy works in that 100%. Movie.
Yes, absolutely. All right, my second one in the good category, another one I rewatched this week, and I'm glad I did because I might have had it in the category above this. That is Signs.
Wow, it dropped. Ooh.
It dropped a little bit, yeah. So Signs, I do like a lot. I think there's probably a pretty sizable gap between Unbreakable and Signs. I love Joaquin Phoenix in this, playing just a regular Joe in Mel Gibson's brother. This is an inspired Mel Gibson performance. He's great. A very, very young Abigail Breslin. She's got to be like 4 years old as the daughter who keeps leaving glasses of water around the house, and it actually ends up being pretty crucial in saving their lives.
Right.
I think the thing that Signs, I just had to keep it in good instead of great category, is the most interest. Like, I wanted so much more, and this maybe it's just me. I wanted so much more on these creatures that were built to be like this huge looming threat the whole time. We get a little bit like through the news and stuff like this. And the movie, if I'm being totally honest, what it focuses on is Mel Gibson's grieving in the loss of his wife, and how it's like I don't know if you remember, but he's a reverend who basically gives up on the Christian religion because he's like, well, if God exists, why did my wife get hit by a drunk driver? Or a guy who fell asleep at the wheel. And the movie focuses so much on that, which it actually does really, really well. But the whole time I'm like, that's great. That's a really good movie. I want to know more about these fucking aliens.
Yeah.
So that's just a personal preference here. I'm not knocking it as a movie, but I think you'll see like the 4 movies that I have ahead of this, I really, really like a lot. And for Signs, it to me, like, it's a really, really well-made movie. Again, top tier of M. Night performances he gets out of actors, maybe even too good if I'm being honest, because it actually ends up stealing the show in the film. I just wanted more of the M. Night classic, like, what is this threat? I want to know more about it, at least in the end. It's fine building the mystery throughout it, but the like crescendo of the whole film, we really don't get that many answers, and obviously that's intentional, and some people would prefer that. But for me, I just wanted a little bit more like finality to this thing that we've been scared of the whole time.
Do you think it's been like, out of curiosity, like part of maybe getting 3 movies on, let's say, A Quiet Place and other movies that like visit related type, like aliens coming to Earth, where we're getting a little more background? I mean, I don't know. Do you think that could be something? I don't know, where we not as, when we think of like Independence Day, where we don't get as much background on these aliens who are invading Earth, where it wasn't as big of a thing, but now we're getting more movies that, I don't know, take that time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the interesting thing about Signs is, even though like it's pegged as, like through news broadcasts, this like hostile takeover of our planet, the only like actual encounter with the aliens we see through the character's point of view is like 1 or 2 in their house. So it's kind of cool in the sense that it's like smaller. It's more like a home invasion movie with extraterrestrials, even though they play it as like, well, the crop circles are to signal to more aliens to come and all this other stuff. But I guess the personal stakes of it, I think I could have felt more if we knew a little bit more about the aliens coming into it. And I just feel like it had more opportunities at horror that it really didn't take advantage of that it could have. But the character stuff works really, really well. And I actually like when you do end up seeing the aliens in the end, it's a pretty cool visual. And they're used very sparingly, but I think that's effective.
Yeah.
All right, what was your second good?
My third did I did Unbreakable and then I did The Visit. It's my third
Oh,
good.
that's right, The Visit. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Your third and last one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was Split.
That's my last one too.
Okay. So I mean, it's almost specifically McAvoy.
Yep.
like
I think the
honest.
best performance in any M. Night film, and I don't even think it's close, really.
Did he get nominated?
I don't know. He should have, though.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
This is a tour de force right here.
It's insane. Like, what was he, 22, 23 split characters?
Miss Patricia's my favorite, personally. Or
it's in his performance alone,
etc.
would have made this movie incredible. The movie itself, like, I just remember watching it, and that took me over. And so I think in an almost negative way that it was such a powerful performance, it didn't it overpowered the movie. And I know that sounds weird because like it almost didn't appreciate you by the time the movie ended and when it had the like last scene where it took place like what outside in the Bronx Zoo or whatever it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Where it almost felt and it set up the tease for Glass. It almost took a step back where it like devalued the whole movie a little bit like that I wouldn't say it didn't stick the landing. That's almost what took this from good, great to like incredible, why it's like right under the upper echelon for me. But it's just I love a good kidnapped like Silence of the Lambs like kind of like movie where the kidnapper gets to know his prey almost.
And for me, first time I'd seen Anya Taylor-Joy in anything.
Yeah, I mean I'd seen her in I mean this was probably her biggest role for me, too. I would think so.
And
Like
Haley Lu Richardson from season 2 of The White Lotus is also one of the girls who gets
you're right, yeah. I mean, incredible performance. I always love when that like, and then there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome with their characters getting to know their kidnapper. Like, and I always love when there's a like therapist. There's a lot of psychological impact of this movie that I loved. I think it just didn't stick the landing in the third act, and a lot of M. Night movies either collapse or triumph in his third act. I know that's maybe a silly thing to say because that's how a lot of movies are, but M. Night really literally doesn't know. He just sticks to whatever he does. He doesn't like get a second opinion on his endings, I think.
No.
And
That's probably the first thing written a lot of times with these.
yeah. And I think that's the one thing with Split, like literally could have been number one on my list. Because it is literally fantastic in so many ways.
Yeah, I'll agree with all that. The James McAvoy performance is what makes this a film that will always be worth watching for me. I think the only reason that I have 3 films of his ahead of it, which are all in the incredible category, is the 3 films ahead of this have a start to finish script that is just incredible. And Split, great conceit, very, very good script, but like you said, the ending doesn't quite match the energy and how kinetic things are, especially in the second act. Like once you get into that basement and like we don't know exactly like who's safe, what are his intentions, because it literally depends on which personality you're talking to at which moment. I mean, that's probably the quickest second act of any M. Night film, just because you are so locked into the screen at all times.
I had to like when it became the twist reveal that it was related to the Unbreakable saga. Like the thing is, like I remember watching that with my wife, and it was really cool when it was revealed. But we were so disconnected from that, right? Like decades later.
Yeah.
And that like
most people are like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah. And I think that was so hard to process because you and I always hate when we see something like take like I'm not trying to bring in long legs into this, but I was like, okay, I like when something's realistic and then all of a sudden it goes supernatural out of nowhere. And I get that this one was based in some sort of world building that M. Night was doing. And I think that's where it was like, if you could have connected it maybe earlier on, or so given us some sort of newscast for, I don't know
Yeah,
if he could have
there
connected
definitely
this
could have
in a
been.
way that
They
would have
could have
made
left
this better.
breadcrumbs without spoiling it. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. There was something there that we walked out of that theater and I had to explain to my wife, like, oh, here's what he was actually doing. And I'm like, the general audience walked out of that being like, well, that was a really cool performance by McAvoy. But like, it didn't stick. And I think that's again like M. Night struggles with that. Like he needs to put himself in the mind of a casual viewer, and he doesn't do that for his movies.
Yeah, this one requires a little inside baseball.
Yeah.
For sure. But the performance is, I think you and I agree, and it'd be hard to find somebody to argue with it, but it's the best performance by far in an M. Night movie. He definitely asks the most of his lead actor that he does of any of his other films.
Yeah.
He basically play 22 different people.
How can you not? Yeah.
Right. All right, last tier, if you're done.
Yep.
The incredible tier. I have 3 films left. You should as well, right?
Same. Yep.
Perfect. All right, what's your first in the incredible tier?
I'm gonna do a sign, so I won't take long because you already went on this. I think for me, signs you alluded to performances all around. This was in still the era where M. Night could almost go no wrong. And what was incredible about Signs to me was that like M. Night was still hitting everything out of the park when his expectations were so high. Um, and that's what's crazy about like Hollywood is right. Like when he could do no wrong, he could do no wrong, and when he could do no right, he could do no right. Right? Like it's just that, and that guy has just lived every era for Hollywood, and he wears it with the badge of honor. Like respect to him. The movies we've gone over tonight, but Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson and everyone else in that film delivered an incredible performance. The film itself had an aura where it takes place that has an actual human element that we've all maintained some conspiracy theory on what does go on in middle America. We all question our faith and realistic inability to explain things that happen to good people. And again, when I've complained about how M. Night doesn't know how realistic things happen, this is one of the movies where he is good at explaining how real people do struggle with real things. And maybe he's lost that over the years. This is an earlier film for him. And there is some scary elements. This is one of his scarier films. It's not scary, but he has thriller elements in this
tense.
film.
Yeah, it's definitely
tense. And I agree. Joaquin Phoenix delivers a very everyman performance. For him, it's weird to see him as a regular guy.
I almost feel like for him to do that now, he would have to method act and like follow around.
Does he know how to?
Like, what does a regular guy act like? I don't even.
Does he go to a bar and just like order a Miller Lite? Like,
does he know how to sip it?
Yeah. So like, I won't waste time. You talked about this too. So like, yeah, I love Signs. It's a great film. We can always make fun of aliens who are, can't handle water going to a planet that's 70% water, but that's fine.
Didn't plan that
out. But like, it is what it is. It's still a great film. And again, M. Night, like, props to him going at it again early in his career.
Yeah. All right. My first in incredible is really a film that like introduced me to the twist, to the what the fuck at the end of the film, and that is The Sixth Sense.
Third on the incredible.
Number 3, yep.
That's an M. Night Shyamalan twist right there.
There you go. The I See Dead People, iconic line. That's like a top 3 or 4 movie line probably ever, right?
God, yeah, it will stand the test of time.
Yeah. This is like it sounds like a horror movie when you describe the plot to people. There are definitely horror elements in it, or at least like creepy visuals, but the tension really in it lies the entire time with the unreliable narrator and just like, what do we believe? What is like, there's clearly something nefarious happening with this mother. What's Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment's role to play in all this? And it's just perfectly executed. And I think more so than anything, because we didn't know who M. Night Shyamalan was at the time, it was just like such a pleasant surprise. We're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what is this? This is wild. And when
Yeah.
you see it, especially for the first time, you're like, damn, this director has some fucking balls, because that was like insane. Like he was dead the whole time, but kept acting like he didn't believe that the kid could see dead people. Like, damn, that's first off kind of the first gaslighting example I've ever seen, but also pretty fucked up.
Gaslighting before I knew what gaslighting was.
Right. So The Sixth Sense for me, and again, great movie. Part of the reason it's number 3 on this list is I fucking love the two ahead of this. So I'm sure you'll talk about it here in a second.
Yeah.
What's your next incredible?
So my second most incredible is The Village.
Nice.
Yeah, so that tells you what my number 1 is. The Village is, so I mean, one, I think incredible performances. So we have Bryce Dallas Howard and Joaquin Phoenix, Adrian Brody, incredible cast, William Hurt. It's so funny when this movie came out, how many people hated it. Like, how many
I don't get it. I
movie.
really don't. I don't get.
My wife hated.
I don't get it.
Movie.
I don't get a single critique about this movie.
Well, what's funny is she's come back around. Like, I think a lot of people who hated this movie have come back around. They hated it because they hated the twist.
I think it's like.
But they hated the twist. You know why? Because they fucking didn't get the twist. And that's what I had like always call my wife out on. I'm like, you're mad that the twist, you weren't ready for that kind of twist.
Yeah, you didn't come to play ball.
Yeah. You can't be mad at a twist that I will die on this hill. That fucking probably exists today. The twist of The Village is insane.
Yes.
Because it's made, she's like, oh, it was meant to be a monster movie. I'm like, that's the fuck.
That's the point.
Bro.
Yeah, they tricked you too.
You know who the monster is? Us humans.
We're the
monsters. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like you see this day and age right now, like how everyone is trying to take us backwards. Like we're like, oh, we need to go back into a more Puritan society. Like we need to like go back. We need to do this. We need to be more like that is the human element. The Village is so like, again, I have made this.
You're like, you don't even need a monster if you just convince people that one's real. Yes. You know,
like, you don't go over there. It's evil over there. We are the good people. Don't go there. Like, The Village is insane.
Skip ahead 30 seconds if you haven't seen The Village.
I don't know how if you haven't seen The Village, the movie came out
when
whatever that was.
When that Jeep Grand Cherokee pulls up, I think that was like almost Saw level twist for me.
I was like, there's just no music, and you're just like, what? And she's Bryce Dallas Howard is being blind. Like,
yeah, you're just so confused.
Like, just like, and
you turn to the person next to you, you're like, wait a second.
You're like, you're confused. You're like, am I missing something?
Yeah.
Did she go through a time warp? Like, did Doctor Strange just come in and like?
Because that actually would be pretty fucking cool.
It's like,
let's keep going down that path.
I don't think there's a movie that has made people so angry at the twist. Like the amount of people, I think because this was the movie that showed you that M. Night had made it. Yeah. Because people were pissed at the twist. They wanted a monster, and he gave them the monster, and the monster was a fucking mirror, and they were mad at what they fucking saw. So fuck yeah, man.
Just shows how right it was.
Yeah.
Good one. All right. My number 2 in the incredible and my overall ranking is your aforementioned one, The Visit. It's his scariest movie. It's one of the best found footage movies I've ever seen.
And you've been on a found footage kick.
I have been. And this is so much better than most of the ones I've been watching. Yeah. The performances are really good. Like the kids in this do a really, really good job. The daughter actually has a really poignant emotional moment, like at the beginning of the third act, that she absolutely knocks out of the park. I think the twist is incredible with this, and I think it only adds to the horror. when you go back and rewatch it, like I'm sure there's tons of things you catch that are 10 times creepier after you actually know where things are going at the end. And the reveal of the twist, I think, actually is one of the most horrific elements in any of his movies. Like you said, the way and when Catherine Hahn finds out, like the helpless feeling of being 4 hours away by car, knowing that this is happening to your kids. It's just, I can't think of a flaw with The Visit. And I have a huge proclivity to found footage movies. It's just a genre that I am like addicted to, but this is so perfectly executed. And for M. Night to do found footage, you and I know the same thing with Screen Life. Like it can really test a director because you have to get very creative. Like the camera in found footage, there has to be a reason why it is where it is at all times.
Yep.
Like it's a whole other, and also people argue that it's difficult too, because this one's a little bit different because the footage we found, she has edited into a movie, but they say you can't use score because in a found, like if I have my camera out in the woods, why would there be a fucking like symphonic orchestra behind what's happening? So it makes it a little bit harder to build tension. But The Visit, I mean, I can't say enough positive things about it. I think it's so slept on. I don't even want to say it's underrated. I think there's a lot of people that if you said, have you seen M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit? They'd be like, I've never even heard of that.
No,
that is.
Like I said, I only visited. That's fine. I only saw it last year.
Yeah. I think it was at a time where I did notice this in the credits. It's a Blumhouse movie. So I wonder if this was at a time that he was having trouble getting financing because he was like, had a string of like 3 or 4 bad films in a row.
Yeah.
And Blumhouse, who's obviously known as kind of like the low budget horror studio, this was probably before they had really blown up. If they were like, hey man, we'll definitely take a chance on you. Like, we got an idea that you've been kicking around for a few years. And he was like, actually, yeah.
I'm telling you, my words when that movie ended, I think I texted you. I would have said M. Night is fucking back.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. The scene, I didn't mention this when I talked about it, with the grandma crawling underneath the house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck.
When they don't know she's down there in the crawl space. And that's during the day, and it still freaks you the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. Creepy as fuck.
Yeah. All right, what are you down to your number 1 or your number 2?
Yeah, my number 1, I don't want to take too much time, is Sixth Sense. And specifically because I think I enjoyed The Visit more, but I have to give credit when credit is due. And The Sixth Sense rewrote a genre. And The Sixth Sense set a tone for movies that you and I love. And like when I think of Saw, right? Like you and I, like one of our favorite movies ever. And when we think of movies that have twists and things like that, when you think of iconic moments in film, Sixth Sense is always going to be up there. Yeah. And I think you can't think of M. Night without Sixth Sense. While I might enjoy a movie of his more than Sixth Sense in terms of rewatchability, I think that if Sixth Sense doesn't have, if there's one fault to Sixth Sense, it is rewatchability. It's because once you know that the twist is the twist.
But that's also its strength, is it drops a fucking anvil on you.
Yeah. And I think there is a rewatchability in terms of when you watch it again, once you know the twist, it is fun to see how you honestly, the first time you watch it, you do feel like Bruce Willis talks to other characters. I remember that the first time.
Oh, he sits down with his wife like twice.
Yes. Yeah. And he goes to dinner and things like that. And then you will rewatch it afterwards. And
you're like, oh my God, you're not there.
No one's talking to him at all. And so I do feel like there is that rewatchability, but after that second rewatch, like it doesn't hold. The performances are incredible. Haley Joel Osment is incredible. Bruce Willis is incredible. There isn't that extra rewatchability. I'm never sitting there going, oh, I want to rewatch Sixth Sense, compared to some of his other movies. But when I think about M. Night's impact on film, when I think of M. Night's impact on the genre, when I think of impact on my love of film, it's not there without Sixth Sense. And I don't think he gets to The Village. I don't think he gets to Split. I don't think he gets to The Visit. I don't think he gets to any of these films without Sixth Sense. And that's why it's number one for me, and that's it. And so and it's just that it's just, is it my favorite of his films? Maybe not. And if we're doing our top 100, it's not my favorite of his films, but it's just hard for me to not list it as his best film.
Yeah, it's just brilliant in so many different ways.
Yeah.
All right, my number one is The Village.
Love it.
For all the reasons you just named. I think when people, Cycle, you kind of got my blood boiling here. When people hate this movie, I think I love it more.
I want to punch them in the face. When they
I know
it.
It's like I get fired up about this one because I'm just like, dude, this is the pretentious side of me where it's like, you just don't fucking get it, bro.
Yeah, you don't get it. No, you don't fucking get it. Actually, you don't. You piss me off. I don't like it because it's what. No, you don't.
I've always wanted to unironically be that guy, and now I am. This is one I didn't rewatch just because, like the other ones on that I had seen this week, the 5, were ones that I was like, maybe I would grade them differently, and I was pretty confident that The Village was still going to be my number one. So I was like, as great as it is, like I know what you have. I want to see what some of these other movies have on a watch after a long time. But I'm probably going to watch this again soon because now I'm pumped up, and I don't know if my wife knows the twist in it.
Oh wow!
But it's fucking wild, man. I remember this was like, I don't know if you and I saw this together, but this was like a theatrical experience for me where I was like, oh, at the end. like my crowd got in.
Back, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. You're like, holy. Well, everyone like stops what they're doing. They're like, the fuck?
Yeah.
And then
the people are pissed.
For like 15 seconds, you're like, this is really fucking stupid. And then I was like, oh my God, M. Night, slow clap, you motherfucker.
Yeah, people who think it's stupid don't think for a second of what humanity actually does.
Like, right. I'm saying this and I mean to be rude. Like, you honestly don't understand, I think, what the twist means. No. Like, the fact that because again, you said this is like so scary in ways that it's so realistic. I guarantee you there are some levels of this happening right
now. You don't know cults at all.
Exactly.
Then. You don't know the human brain then if you don't understand The Village.
Right. Yeah. And think about like how many things in life like we're convinced through fear of some repercussion to not do something. This is really just
every day in this country, if not world. All the time.
This is just a microcosm of that. And then you throw on top of it the fact that like us as the audience member, you're like, holy shit, I was actually scared of that monster the whole time.
Yes. God damn it.
It's fucking brilliant. And also, I just love William Hurt, the late William Hurt. Like, I know Harrison Ford is playing General Ross now in the new Captain America, but I wish if William Hurt was still alive, him getting to play this version of that character would have been awesome.
I think once we get off the phone, I'm going to go upstairs and yell at my wife about how great The Village is.
She'll be like, where's this coming from?
I'm like, you know where it's coming from.
Feels like a sucker punch. Like, I'm just up here sleeping.
She's like, huh?
So again, if you looked at an M. Night list and this was my number one, I mean, I've Village and Visit it for 1 and 2. You might be like, what the fuck? But those movies just are badass. And I consider myself a pretty big M. Night head. And I think those are his just absolute best pieces of work, the 2 Vs.
At the end of the day, M. Night, we'll keep giving you our $8-9. You can, half your movies suck, half your movies are great.
I mean, regardless, like anytime he makes a movie, I know it's like appointment television for you and I.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll be like, we'll go to send the trailer to each other and be like, oh, here we go.
Yep. I'm ready to get hurt again. And his other daughter, the director who did The Watchers this summer, which I saw, and he produced, he didn't write it or anything, so it wasn't on this list. But I think I had high hopes that she might be like the second coming of him. That movie did not do much for me. I thought it was pretty bad, but at least, I don't know. It was kind of in the vein of like a Big Swing. So if she continues to put out films like that, I'll at least give him a shot as well.
I'll give an honorable mention to where he, like you said at the very beginning of the pod, he produced The Devil, the movie that I believe takes place on an elevator.
Yeah, I believe almost the whole thing except like the last 5 minutes.
I loved that movie.
I liked it a lot. Yeah.
I mean, again, originality. I don't know how much he, as a producer, sometimes you're more money than anything, but like that movie was really great. Like in terms of just thriller, original, just kept me guessing.
Another really cool concept, right? Like 6 people trapped on an elevator, and we as the audience know one of them is the devil.
And you have no idea. Like my wife and I the whole time were like, it's that person, it's that person. And
Oh yeah,
we'd be like, but here's why.
it's well crafted enough to where at any point you think one character for one reason or another is the actual.
That person's too good. They have to be the devil.
Yeah, that person hasn't said shit in like 10 minutes. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, they're dead in the corner. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the devil would be dead. It has to be them.
Yeah. All right, Cycly, before we close out with our Do You Even Lift Bra, any final thoughts on the M. Night rankings?
No, like I said at the very beginning, appreciate M. Night for just at least trying originality in Hollywood.
Yeah, thank you for just willing to take the shots no one else is. Stuart Little, if we had to put it in this list, just kidding.
He'd be number one. It's not even fair.
Yeah, it's right up there with The Village for me. Both horrifying. All right, moving on to the last part of our show, which is our question. Oh, I guess protein shake. I'm sorry, totally skipped this. I don't have much to say. Protein shake, second part of our show, where we go around and talk about what's in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. So I watched Trap, Lady in the Water, Signs, After Earth, and The Visit.
You want to talk about some M. Night movies?
Yeah, all this week. So I don't have anything to say about those. I have one reality show I might want to talk about, but what do you want to talk about, Cycly? What's in your cup?
I've held off on this in the last few months. I have been watching this over the last few months, but I purposely haven't said anything for this moment. So the wife and I have finally finished Succession on HBO.
Oh, wow.
We are obviously well behind. The show finished a year ago. 4 seasons on HBO. My sister has been trying to get us to watch it forever, and we were this was one of the shows
your oldest sister or your
my middle sister. Yeah,
okay.
well, both of them will watch, but my middle sister especially. This was usually I'm pretty on pace with what everyone on the interwebs is watching in terms of like what's hot on TV. And this was one of them that I just was behind on.
I'll be honest, I still don't know the difference between this show and Billions.
From what I know, I've never watched Billions. Succession is a show that is basically about, it's almost like the Murdochs of Fox is basically a TV show about a family that is owns a major network, news network in their $1 billion family. And the dad is getting older and they're all fighting for who's going to take over when he either passes on or just gives one of
steps
them.
Down. Yeah.
Yeah, steps down. Has won a ton of Emmys, ton of Golden Globes. Brian Cox, obviously legend. Kieran Culkin, Jeremy Strong, Sarah Snook. This show, it's comedy / drama, worthy of every award. I'm sure many of you guys listening is like, dude, this show has been on the last 5 years, so I'm well behind the times. I will just say, it is worthy of every award. And
from all accounts too, this is a show that ended on its own terms. They didn't let HBO bleed it dry of ideas.
It's only 4 seasons. Like,
yeah,
that's insane. For the show that was like probably one of their top shows, and again has won every award imaginable. And each season is 10 to 12 episodes. Like, Jeff, like, you guys should watch it. Yeah, about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. But like, it's incredible. Like, we've watched it probably over the last 6 months. Like, it's incredible. I mean, writing and acting, like, it's literally what you sign up for when you watch a show on HBO, right? Like, these kind of performances. It doesn't like when someone tells you, hey, like, Jeff, you should watch like Game of Thrones, you're like, you're signing up for a lot of like, all right, I'm gonna be putting up with a lot of bullshit. Like, I'm gonna be signing up for a lifetime of like BS. Like, this show does not have that, because it's literally 4 seasons of you're like going in, and it's incredible. And I remember, like, there was 3 episodes left last week. And I like looked at my wife and I was like, how are we done with this show? Yeah. Like, how are there not 3 more seasons?
Yeah, like, that's usually a good feeling, unless you're like, how are they going to wrap this up? But if it's the fact where you're like, I feel like there's so much gas left in the tank.
The only other show that's made me feel this way is Breaking Bad. that also finished at the top of its game. That said, like AMC was essentially begging Breaking Bad as its number one show, like, hey, please don't end. Like, we'll give you all the money. And they're like, no, we have one story to tell. Like, we're
Yeah, when
gonna
the
end on
creatives
top.
realize like it's better for the longevity of both the show and all of our careers if this ends positively.
Like
While
we're
it's
gonna do this
still
right. And again, like I said, I'm coming like to the game, so apologies to all listeners who are like, bro, we all know about Succession. So like I probably should have been talking about this 2 years ago. But like for those of you who have heard about it like me and didn't listen and watch it, Succession is absolutely worth the hype. It's every performance is incredible. Um, it's so good. Please go watch Succession on HBO.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things, so that is going to have to get taken care of at some point for me. Only thing I will say that I watched, which is very, very similar to the show you just watched. My wife and I need a trashy reality show that we watch in the background all the time. And we had recommended to us Love Island UK. But we were told to start with season 3, which I'm a completist, so that's hard for me to do. But
Wolf.
I was like, all right, we'll jump into season 3, even though I like to see how, like, especially with reality shows, like how the game evolves season to season.
Of course.
But 2 things I'll say about Love Island UK season 3. First off, Cycly, as a Anglophile, someone who appreciates British culture, you would love this because we had to put the subtitles on to understand what they were saying a lot of times. But some of my,
I have to.
I mean, so I actually sent myself a text message with some of my favorite British phrases from this that I want to read to you. And I think you'll know what most of these mean. Do you know what grafting means?
Grafting. No.
Grafting means that you're basically laying it on someone pretty thick with the flirting.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Oh, Kevin Amber, he's really been grafting with her, hasn't he?
Oh wow, no.
Is he grafting?
No
Another one I
grafting.
love is when a new person comes in the house. First off, the 15-second pitch for Love Island. It's 8 boys and 8 girls on an island. They have basically 3 weeks to find a match, and then America votes on which couple they like the most. So they basically fuck each other the whole time, and then at the end try and settle with someone that America sees them with. Do you know what it means if I ask if someone has the chat? Like, oh, does he have the chat?
I mean, I'm gonna assume that like he's part of the conversation.
It basically means he's like personable.
Oh wow, no.
No, I know I've got the looks. I know I have the chat. That's what they mean if they're like.
Damn, I'm like embarrassed.
How about if someone or something is muggy? If it's muggy, what do you think
I'm
that
gonna
is?
say like it's like it's gray. It's like murky. It's like not clear.
So sort of. This one is like if you do something fucked up, you're acting muggy. Oh, Muggy Mike is one of the characters they call him that because he just like tries to fuck over the girls all the time.
Wow. Okay. Man, I need to go back to Britain.
And then 2 words, you'll know what these are, but the way that they use the word proper, like at one point they're like, we haven't a proper snog, have we? Which basically means like we haven't really made out, have we?
They go with proper snug. Like we've only like fake made out.
Yeah, a proper snog, have we? I'm proper pissed off. They say that one a lot too. And then referring to women as birds is just something that I always think is funny. I think you're the best looking bird in here, And then the last thing, and Nate Thurman loves this too, the boys refer to each other as geezer. Like, he's a good geezer, ain't he? And then if they're really close, they abbreviate geezer to geese. Oh, he's quite the geese, ain't he?
Which makes me think of like an old man.
In like American culture, a geezer is someone who's basically like decrepit, like they can't even move. But
like if you called me hey geezer, I'd be like, what the fuck, bro? I mean,
damn,
like, we're
bro,
the
that's
same
messed
age.
up. Yeah, in this, they're like, I don't like the geezer. That's like maybe like the most pivotal time they use it in the. It's right before 2 guys basically like get into it. So Love Island UK season 3. I won't spoil it obviously because I think it's part of the fun is not knowing who wins this, but it's fun ride. I would highly recommend it. It's a lot of episodes, but they go by really fast, and it's just everyone.
What's it streaming on?
Hulu, and then the US version is on Peacock. One last thing about the way the show ends. At the end of the show, the winning couple get £100,000, probably $100,000 if it's in the U.S. I don't know if the prize money is equitable. And of the £100,000, the two members of the couple each draw something from an envelope. One of them says they get the money. The other one says they don't get the money.
Oh, wow.
Whichever of the two gets the card that says they get the money, they get to decide if they want to keep the 100,000 or split it with their partner.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like a really. So then it's like, were you really in it for love, or were you just playing me for the game the whole time?
Could they not like meet outside and be like, hey, I'm going to take the money, but meet me outside?
Probably could. But the tension of doing it in front of a live audience. Yeah. All right. Anything else you've seen?
The wife and I are going to Italy in October. So I won't go too deep into these movies because they are high in my top 100. But I was motivated to watch The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 this weekend. So I rewatched The Godfather and Godfather Part 2, which are obviously iconic films, not just for myself, but just in film history, obviously. And I was raised on these films. I know that sounds weird to say. My parents were not. I come from an immigrant family, and I say that to give you those listening, like films with violence were never like things that were protected from children. Like that was not a big deal when I was a child. Yeah, like that was not something my parents were like thought was a big deal. Like it was very different like American households versus like immigrant households. Like they just viewed things differently. I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong, but like what I distinctly remember being like 6, 7 years old and The Godfather being on the TV.
Like, should that be on the background?
Yeah, I jokingly like say this is why I have like such a weird love for horror, because like I would watch like I watched Ransom when I was 8 years old, when the kid in Ransom was also 8 years old getting kidnapped.
Oh, that would have freaked you out, yeah.
Like I was like, I was freaked out, but I was like, my parents never like really like thought for a second like, hey, maybe this is fucking our child up, like, hey, let's put Silence of the Lambs on.
And then you're like, maybe my parents also aren't rich enough to where I would be kidnapped.
Yeah, like that's my favorite thing about like, yeah, that's literally like, hey, what am I gonna get kidnapped? Oh yeah, dad's not rich though. I'm like, but I'm not processing that because I'm 8 years old. So, but Godfather is if not arguably one of the greatest films of all time. I'm not gonna say it's like my top one film, like for me. I'm just saying like as a film, and it's incredible to rewatch. Because like it's called that. So when you call like The Godfather the greatest film of all time, like it's funny to like rewatch it and then put that perspective, and it's still to be able to like hold that line. Because when you call a film that, you're like almost going to set up for disappointment.
Well, it's like you watch on a rewatch, it's like it can only get worse, really.
Right. Like you want to like you want to like lower the bar.
Yeah.
And like every time I rewatch The Godfather, I'm like almost reminded of how incredible it is. And it's the first one is 3 hours long. Like it's like 2 hours 55 minutes. Take away like 8 minutes of credit. So it's like really 2 hours 45 minutes, which isn't that insane, to be honest with you. And I'm almost like, it could be longer. There's moments where I'm like, this film could actually do more.
It's like the ultimate compliment to a movie.
Yeah, it actually is. And like Al Pacino and like I don't know. The film is so, it's like I wasn't a film major. I just love movies. But when you watch Godfather, it's just like you get the hype. And then I watched Godfather Part 2. And then I'm always Godfather Part 2 is like up there with like Empire Strikes Back of like arguably like the greatest sequels of all time. I'm one to say like the best part of Godfather Part 2 is the prequel portion. um, where
Yeah.
they do the Vito Corleone part, where Robert De Niro plays Vito Corleone. Um, I wish we got almost more of that, and that's my favorite part of part two. So rewatching that is always great because we're going to Sicily, and I was like, oh god, these parts in Sicily. So yeah,
And maybe one of,
rewatch.
if not the most iconic score of all time.
Oh my god, the scene where like Robert De Niro goes and does the assassination,
Yeah.
and he's like jumping on the rooftops. That score, I have that score like recorded, and sometimes it comes up on my playlist, and I'm just like, it's
I need to
so
murder
fucking
someone.
good. I need to kill someone right now. Like I just have to.
Sir, my Spotify playlist told me to do
Like
it. Oh,
it's
carry on.
yeah, like I Godfather is one of those movies, like I said, it's not number one on my movie, like, but like it really represents family to me. It represents like iconic filmmaking. It's just perfection in a way in film. So like it's just fun to rewatch every year or two. So yeah, rewatch The Godfather this weekend.
Yeah, I need to go back and do that because it has been a long time since I've seen the Godfather. It's probably like
They're long
late.
movies, but they really do hold their weight for the length.
Yeah. Again, runtime is, I mean, it's kind of relative. We talked about Trap earlier. Like, if you can have a justification for it, and then you usually don't feel it as much.
No, I will say the first Godfather in the 3 hours is shorter than the hour 40 minutes of Trap.
Yeah. Especially the third act of Trap. That's where
Yes.
it's really fun. All right. Anything else?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. Last part of our show, question and answer segment. Do you even lift bruh? Brian's not here to do the screeching parrot. Yeah, there you go. Where we ask a question that we leave with, and we definitely want your opinion in the comments of this podcast. So we had been doing our top 100 list. What is the Bros top 100 movie list of all time? We're going to pause that countdown again this week. If you do want to see that list, it's linked in the description of this episode, where we've been counting down our top 100 films, each of us, and it is also on our website, bro4squad.com. Another thing, though, you might want to look at in the description of this podcast is the article that we are about to reference. And Ronnie, having you on pod as a contract attorney, it's perfect to discuss this. So this has been in the news. I think this happened like a week ago, but it's really started to come to the forefront now because Disney Plus actually ties into the lawsuit now. And the article on hand, there's actually a Reddit thread as well, but it is from The Verge, which is, I think, like a tech and entertainment news website. The headline is Disney wants to dismiss a wrongful death lawsuit because of a Disney Plus agreement. So I'm going to really summarize the news article. Someone can go and read it if they want, but I really want your opinion on this. And then obviously anyone in the comments weigh in as well. But essentially, at one of Disney's parks in Florida, there was a couple who had eaten there. I'm trying to find their name here in the article. Jeffrey Piccolo is, I believe, the husband, and his wife's name was Kanakporn Tong Swan. Now, his wife has severe allergies, and so the restaurant that they chose to eat at the Disney park was known for having, quote, the accommodation of persons with food allergies as a top priority, end quote. Well, what ended up happening is the couple ate there, and unfortunately, Tong Swan suffered an allergic reaction to something in her food and passed away. And they are filing, they being the family and Jeffrey Piccolo, a wrongful death lawsuit, which Disney is trying to get out of, or at least have the case dismissed, because they are saying, quote, any dispute between you and us, except for small claims, is subject to a class action waiver and must be resolved by individual binding arbitration. And cyclically, I'll toss it over to you here, but they believe that they have this protection from any sort of litigation or lawsuit brought against them because the husband, Piccolo, agreed to terms and conditions in a Disney Plus free trial in May. And in those terms and conditions, it specifically or explicitly states that any lawsuit against Disney will be handled out of court and they will not take them in front of a judge and a jury. So what did I miss, if anything? And then what are your thoughts on this crazy scenario?
So the first thing I'm going to say, just as like legal obligation to anyone listening, is like, I'm going to give an opinion here. And I'm going to say, like, I'm giving my opinion and not like legal advice to anyone listening.
Yeah.
so I can't get in trouble. And anything I could say is going to be interesting because we're entering uncharted territory. I'm going to be honest. Um, a lot of what's going to happen in the next few months/years is going to be determined by judges that we don't know. Because a lot of what's going to happen is literally going to be interpreted in things we've never entertained before.
There's
and
no precedent for a lot of these
there's
things.
no precedent, exactly. And so why I'm preferencing this right now is saying that we don't know what we don't know. What I'm going to tell you now is that contract law is murky. I tell my clients all the time, I work for a corporation. I'm obviously not going to tell you who, but I work for a company. I work for a big company. And contract law, we try to make as black and white as possible. But there is such a thing as to say there is an idea of a quid pro quo, right? When you deal in contract law, and that when you have a contract, right, whether it's terms and conditions or whatever, it's still a contract, right? Like when you sign up with someone, it's a contract, and there's supposed to be some equality there. And so when I do my job, I have some understanding that my counterpart has a lawyer also looking at the contract language. Right. There is some understanding that they have an expert also looking at the contract so they can understand the language. This is realistic. This is ethically speaking. So like when we talk about terms and conditions on Netflix or um, Disney Plus, right? And you have no right or obligation to like. There's no ability to redline those contracts.
Right, you can't redline the T's and C's. Yeah.
So there's no power balance between the parties. This is a real thing in contract law, right? Like there's no power balance. This is something the court can take into consideration. So I can't speak again. Like this is why I'm saying this is just an opinion as a lawyer. This is something for the judge. And I don't know who the judge is going to be. I don't know how they're going to look at this. This is something that a judge has to look at the power balance between the parties. And it's simply like they can't just look at like you have to look at how one party is simply like one is stronger and one is weaker. What is the ability of one party to look at something? Can they understand? Can they argue? Can they even process? And let's be honest, how often is a reasonable person, how often is a normal person looking at Netflix or Disney or Hulu or whatever?
Right, I'm sure they factor into like the length of the T's and C's. Like if
Yes.
it's a 67-page terms and conditions, like that's really
How long? 3 seconds that you're looking at that?
Yeah.
And so I can tell you ethically, I can send a contract to another company. If I get a sign off immediately back and they say we're good, we ethically have a conversation in my in-house and we say, I don't think they share that with their attorneys. We immediately have a conversation saying, ethically, we're nervous now. Because if they sign that contract, they might now have legal standing to say that they're going to fight this if something goes wrong. That they didn't actually have legal counsel to fight this. So like my point is that Disney, here's the beautiful part about contract law. You can put anything you fucking want in a contract. Doesn't mean it's binding. So I can put, hey Jeff, I get your firstborn son. I get your firstborn daughter in a contract.
Yeah.
Does it mean I get your firstborn son or firstborn daughter? No, absolutely not. But you signed it. And you know what it means? It means now that you have to work for it. It means now that you have to like just
the burden of proof has shifted, right?
Yeah. So like think about when you go to Six Flags, or think about when you go to any place like with a trampoline or something, and you're saying like you sign a waiver, and they say we're not, or actually no, it's even better. When you're on a highway and you see a semi truck that says like, stay 60 feet back, we're not liable for anything that comes out of the bed of our truck.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
there's
think
no
that.
legal. There's no legal. That's just words. That's just words. They are literally just saying that so you think you don't have the legal right. So Disney, let's just say, is saying this to hold you back, to make you think like you can't do something. So all the Disney lawyers, who are getting paid more than me, by the way, by a lot, and they probably have 80 lawyers who are equivalent to me, you know, they basically are just making someone have to take a step that they can't do. Right? They're getting that scared to take that step because they have that many people breathing down their throat. So that many waivers, that many words in a contract are staring at them. They're basically daggers down their back.
Yeah.
And that's what these contracts do. They're not meaning that they're going to lose. It's just that who has more money, a billion, $80 billion company, or this couple who has God knows how much money? And that's what really is the problem. So that's the issue.
The other interesting like contractual wrinkle to this is obviously his wife is not here to file the lawsuit. That's literally the point of it. So the I believe one of the arguments Piccolo, which is the husband's lawyers, are making are that he agreed to the terms and conditions, but his wife did not. So even though he's bringing the lawsuit, it's for
Yeah.
her wrongful death. So she's not the one who signed the Disney Plus user agreement that said she wouldn't sue them. So that's another.
You could argue again, it goes back to the same thing. It's like, are they a household? So, like, my wife uses the same Netflix account, right? Like, Netflix will view us as a household, Disney views us as a household. But it still goes into the same argument I was making. Like, the whole thing at the end of the day, just because you put words in a contract doesn't mean it's enforceable. The problem
Right.
is, they're putting roadblocks in front of you to make your life difficult.
Also, I don't know anything about any of this, but $50,000 for wrongful death seems incredibly low for
For
damages.
Disney, for that's like they
Yeah.
could literally like
Right. Like, do you
that's
really want to do
nothing for
this?
them.
Yeah, the person died. Like, they only want 50K? Holy
They
shit.
literally
I
could
would,
cough that 50,000 and not even know what went missing.
my God. It just
But
seems, is it
like I
just a
said,
thing
like
of
again,
pride or
none of the
hubris?
it's again, like I said, like legal advice. This None of this is legal advice, but like as a lawyer, I can tell you, they put this kind of language in contracts or in waivers or in terms and conditions because at the end of the day, the idea is scare people enough
Yeah.
to make them not
It's the
take a
village.
claim. It's the village.
It's the
Yeah,
village
it's the
again. Yeah.
village. It's again, you go to a trampoline, you see a trampoline and someone says, "Hey, sign this waiver." Or, "Hey, park here." Like park in my parking lot and then sign this thing that says I'm not liable for if your car gets broken into and things get stolen. But what if I go break into your car and steal everything? And then I say, and you saw me on camera steal everything from your car, and you go,
Like, but you signed
"Hey,
this.
yeah, but you signed." That's not how life works. Like actually, but you say, well, hey, sorry, actually, you signed the thing that said you said you're okay with anyone's. That's just an extra step to make people think that,
Yeah.
well, you have no right. Like I said, if you see a car on the highway that says, say 60 feet back, I'm not liable for any damages that take place within less than 60 feet. That's not true. That's just them trying to
Right.
say,
You
like,
don't just get
scaring
carte
you.
blanche to destroy my
No,
car
that
because
doesn't
what if
mean they can just throw shit from their car 20
right.
feet off. Like, that's just them scaring you. So I'm not trying to like say do shit whatever you want. I'm just merely stating like these are lawyers who their one job is to protect their clients. They're going to write language that protect their clients to the best of their ability. And that's what Disney has buttloads of money. And so they have more lawyers on their payroll. And so they can do whatever they want. And in this circumstance, unfortunately, they can put anything in their terms and conditions. And you have no right as a consumer to negotiate those.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
really not going to sign up, then that's your right. But I'm sorry, how many millions have signed up?
Just encourages piracy because now you're not beholden to
Exactly.
these same terms and conditions. The article, as of recording this, is 4 days old, and I have a feeling this will be a story that obviously continues to develop. So if you're the headline just read like a Mad Lib to me, so I was like, we have to talk about this.
But
fact that,
somehow, but the sad reason is once you've signed up, even if after it like terminates, you probably, I guarantee there's survivability clauses in this that like once you signed up, it probably exists for 3 years.
It's or I don't know. They get at this point they probably just put like perpetual language in there, like whatever. What do you have to lose? Just say it lasts forever.
I'm just telling. Don't let a lawyer scare you. Lawyers.
So they're the worst, man. I never want to talk to one ever.
Yeah, don't believe lawyers.
All right. Well, if you know anything about this, or if as you're listening to this, there's some update that we've missed, please comment below. Obviously, we're going to keep following this, and like you said, who knows? I mean, one way or another, this is going to affect things down the road. There's obviously so many different streaming partners now. Like, who knows? Hulu's, well, that's a bad example because they're owned by Disney, but Peacock's pitch to get you to subscribe could be like, yeah, we're more expensive than Disney Plus, but our terms and conditions don't say that we'll kill you and be able to get away with it.
Well, ours do at the Bro Force Squad, so.
Right, ours do, but like Peacock.
Ours do, yeah.
Yeah, you had to sign a lot of stuff that I just really didn't read. Probably should have done that.
Yeah, ours are a lot better than Disney Plus's.
Ours are airtight. All right, before we let the people go for episode 227, any closing words, Cycling, what do you want to leave the people with?
I would say read your terms and conditions, but really, honestly, who has the time?
Yeah, that's true. That is one thing where you're just wasting your life if you do so. Let's do the haircut one again. Just, it's end of the summer here. We're rolling into fall in like the next month or so. You want your first haircut for football season to be one that you don't regret. Like if you show up to a tailgate or a watch party, you don't want to look like an idiot. So we're done with anything you got out of your system in the summer that needs to stay in the summer. No hair dyes, mohawks. You're not Rufio. Be smart at the barbershop.
I wish I was.
Yeah, don't we all? All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli, I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. We are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, and Instagram at Bro Force Squad. We are on Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube if you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words, and everything we've ever posted. And our countdown of our top 100 movies of all time list is on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, we will see you at the movies with the Dune 2 popcorn bucket. Which we didn't talk about, but still too sexual to handle.
Or the